Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm Becca, and on this channel I'm reacting my way through eating disorder recovery alongside complex chronic illness, one video at a time, and usually I go with the music videos, whether they're topical, related to mental health or chronic illness, or whether they're just extremely fun rap breakdowns, or whether they're just completely enjoyable musical performances. We love that on this channel. However, today we've got something a little different and a little special, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. So I was actually tagged by McFly, and you can check his description in the channel below. You can check his channel link in the description below. That's what I was going for. As well as all of the other reactors who have taken part in this yet. And what is this? Well, I'll tell you. And if it sounds a little confusing, know that it's because it's chaotic for even those of us who are participating, but it's also a fun time. I'm really, really honored and humbled, honestly, to be included. So thank you for the tag, McFly. And this is RENception episode 7. Now, the concept of RENception, it was started by Disco Doc, the Naughty Therapist. If you have not checked out his channel, he will also be linked below, so definitely go do that. Top tier content for sure. It's totally not Ren, except it might be Ren, except it probably isn't, except it totally is, except he's denying it, except it might be. You'll see what I mean if you're a Ren fan. If you're not, what are you doing? If you're not a fan, then you just haven't heard his music, because you can't not be a fan once you've heard it. But anyway, I've avoided like any overt spoilers because I had a feeling I might get tagged, because I knew this was a thing that was going on, but I didn't want to inadvertently spoil anything. So I am episode 7. This whole project started when the Disco Doc reacted to Knox Hill reacting to Ren, reacting to Knox's reaction of Ren. So that's how this all started. And that was episode 1. So in this episode, episode 7, I'll be reacting to McFly, reacting to the Wolf Johnson, reacting to That Singer Reacts, reacting to BEL Development, reacting to Dan Willer, and then going back to the very first episode 1 of Knox, which is Disco Doc actually reacting to Knox, reacting to Ren, reacting to Knox, reacting to Ren. You confused? So am I. Clear as mud. Without further ado, we're gonna get into this video because I see it's lengthy, but I don't mind lengthy videos. If you've been on this channel, you know that I'm all about them because I know that McFly is going to give us a lot of value. Let's just see what's going on. RENception, episode 7, engage.
Sometimes the weirdest things in life can happen without really rhyme or reason. I was out last night at the store getting dog food, and I got a DM from the one and only the Wolf Johnson. If you don't know who he is, you should by now. He's a reactor on the tubes. Link to his channels in the description. You know, he DM'd me, and we've been commenting back and forth on our channels, right? And wasn't sure what it was about, but all it said was, you know, it said, "Oh, I've nominated you," and he linked one of his most recent videos, and the video is called RENception Season 1 Episode 5, Trigger Warning on Processing Trauma Doc. So I have no idea what it was. He told me to read the description because it'll tell me what to do, all those things. I'm not going to read it to you guys. The description is going to match what it is in my description, right? But essentially it looks like, man, this has a singer reacts and Knox in it.
Okay, it's the same. I'm not going to read through the list of all the things. It is down in my description, though, if you want to see the chaos that kind of started this whole RENception. But yeah, we're all a little confused.
What is happening? What is happening? I mean, like, Wolf, I appreciate you handing this off to me. Like, I'm humbled by that. I really do appreciate it. The kind word you sent me in DMs was really cool. It means a lot to me to know that somebody as, I guess, artistic and unique as you are be willing to share this with me.
Okay, I just want to add here, I'm getting chills going into this because I'm really eager to see what he's got to say in the rest of this. He was talking about Wolf saying something really nice to him in the DMs, and McFly did the same to me. He posted a YouTube short actually announcing that there had been a switch up in the person that he originally shouted out and tagged in the video, like at the end of his video, and he asked me if I wanted to be the next in line, and he said some extremely kind things about my empathy and compassion and the types of content that I share, and it really meant a lot to me to have you say those things, Ren, because I know that it comes from the heart, and I know that this community is honestly just like, I'm convinced it's the most supportive community on YouTube, honestly, as far as like the reactor community, this niche where we are all in this Ren fandom together, Ren demonium, we'll go with that, or maybe we won't, but I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the kind words you had to say about me too, because as we've talked about before, it's hard for me to believe good things about myself, so I thank you. Okay, so part that I'm fast forwarding through here is what I just explained about RENception, about where it started and how it's just kind of this chain reaction. So that's why I'm skipping a little bit, simply because it's the same information.
So that was episode 1, I believe, and then episode 2, I'm not sure. I have to watch this because I don't know where I'm already episode 6. I don't even know where this is going, but it looks like Wolf's watching That Singer Reacts, who's a great reactor as well, one of my favorites. The link to all of these reactors so far that have been in this will be in the description below. So I have no idea what I'm getting into right now. So we're just gonna roll. We're just gonna roll with it.
That's literally how I feel. Like, I have no idea what I'm getting into, so we're just gonna roll with it.
I have no idea what I'm getting into right now. So we're just gonna roll. We're just gonna roll with it. Oh, if you haven't already, please make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. Make sure you go and visit every single one of their channels and like, subscribe to them as well. We don't just talk about me on this channel. We talk about all the other creators as well. So, okay, I have no idea what's gonna happen. So let's get into this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it is Wolf Johnson back again with another reaction. And today,
Wolf, can I have your voice? Thanks.
It's RENception.
Seriously, Wolf has like the smoothest voice, one of the smoothest voices I've ever heard.
Disco Doc, the naughty therapist, has set up a ploy to capture me via That Singer Reacts. Thank you for the nomination, my friend. And
good dude.
I don't really know what the heck is going on, but you know, if Disco Doc fancies themselves a naughty therapist, well, I'm gonna process some trauma right here. So I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna tell you things that I've probably never told anybody. So let's get.
It's going to say it in the description, and it says it in his title. I don't know what it is, but there is a trigger warning, so bear that in mind. He did say in the description of his video that he'll be talking about SA. I can't say it because of YouTube, but just fair warning.
Tell you things that
I'm reacting, like I said, to McFly's video more than anything, but I do want to point out that he just mentioned that there was a trigger warning in Wolf's content, and it applies to McFly's video as well. You can see it in the title, so I just wanted to say that. In case you need to click off, just keep that in mind. Take care of yourselves.
Let's get into this.
I don't know his name. Hold on.
Maybe I won't interrupt my friend immediately.
So
I really
he reacts to a reactor.
like That Singer Reacts. That dude is chill.
Same.
They nominate somebody, and then I gotta nominate somebody, and it just keeps going. Some people say that they think that this person,
And this might ruin the whole thing, but you know, you're gonna bring me into this. Okay, listen.
not sure.
Wolf doesn't play.
It's at least I'm not the only one who's like confused by this. But singing That Singer Reacts confused, that makes me feel a little bit better.
This
So true. Like, I'm have no clue what we're getting into here. So confused, but seems like thus far everyone has been.
Wolf doesn't play by the rules.
But I don't know.
okay?
Let's see
Wolf
what
just
what I'm
lives.
looking at here.
Okay, I want to be respectful of this story here, so I'm not going to dwell on this too long. I do want to say the inception, it's really cool. When there's more than one person talking at once, I tend to go into sensory overload. So if you see me at any point kind of just like freezing or kind of almost shutting down, that's what it is if that talking over like that continues, which again, I want to honor everyone's story that they're sharing. It takes a lot of courage to share difficult things like this, but if I need to pause a little bit every so often just to kind of recalibrate my brain, that's why.
Wolf just
What I'm looking
lives.
at here. Don't forget my Patreon.
When I was
Description, we're getting
when I
The
was
wolf
5
world, we're
years
just
old,
living
I
in
was
it.
sexualized at a very young age. And I think I was
Hold
being- I was
on.
5 years
I'm not gonna talk over that. So I'm just gonna listen.
Wolf just lives.
Don't forget my Patreon.
When I was
Description, we're getting
when I was 5 years old, I was sexualized at a very young age. And I think I was being groomed, you know, because my friend, I won't say his name.
This is difficult in multiple ways. One, the subject matter, right? Again, I think these are things that we need to talk about. This can get me down a whole rabbit hole, Wolf. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I appreciate you being super open, man. That's one of the things that this channel has brought to me, was allowed me to kind of get more in touch with my own self and my own feelings. In sharing that, there's been a lot of people that have been affected positively. So this is hard for me, one, because of the subject matter, but two, also because I'm so distracted by the other reactions that are going on. Look, we all know the wolf's got a mind of his own. It's a wolf world. We're living in it. He turned this.
Okay, that's so true. He does have a mind of his own. He turned this into this whole thing completely, and it honestly, I love that he did it. I love that he's using this to discuss something so important, because it is a topic that we need to talk about. Unfortunately, like Wolf said, like McFly said, we have to be careful about how we say things, because otherwise the YouTube overlords will essentially take the videos down, and we don't want that to happen because these are important conversations. But I thought it was interesting that McFly pointed out the different reactors, like the inception. Can be a little hard to process, even though the subject matter is extremely serious. So again, that is not a complaint at all. It's just I feel you, brother. I have a feeling all of us probably have. But yeah, it takes a lot to open up about something like that.
He turned this idea on its head, and I have to follow that up. So I appreciate making this difficult. I have a little bit, I don't actually have ADHD brains. When I say that, I'm not making fun. I have hard time focusing on one thing. I'm trying to listen to what he's saying, but I'm also just trying to figure out what's going on in the other part of the video. So forgive me if I back it up more than I should, but I want to hear with the wolf because what he's talking about is super important.
So I'm not including all of Wolf's video in here because I'm reacting to McFly's video, but in McFly's video, and then go check out Wolf's video itself so you can get the whole story, because his story deserves your time and attention if you haven't watched it yet. But if you're on this episode, you probably have watched the others.
Allegedly, the duck is not
Held or something, like hugged.
allegedly.
Oh, so he's
But
not.
Me
he's not
to
right.
react.
If it's like somebody's like reaching out to me, you get ready for these hands, because that's just an instinct.
He's only 2 hours away.
One of those things like, look, I have not gone through something like this, so I can't say like I relate in any way, but having kids of my own, like, it's not even having kids of my own, being a decent human being, I mean, I have my issues, but one, to do that to a child is something that I could never fathom, or I don't understand why anybody would want to do anything like that to a child, right? And I understand he said this is a child doing it to another child, but that is, he said, a result of, you know, that other child's life and their living situation. This is systemic. I mean, there's a lot more people that do this than you really think. And there's groups that support each other in doing this. I don't fathom it. As a dad of 3 kids, I don't understand how anybody could have that mentality. I just don't. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I don't get it either.
Okay, I love that one of his kids in the background kind of made a little noise there as he was sharing his experience as a dad about how it's hard to even comprehend how another human can do that. And, you know, he did mention, Wolf said it was another child. However, the generational trauma throughout the generations, it just gets passed down and passed down and passed down. And I'm not a parent. I want more than anything in my life to be a parent. And I'm not trying to make this video about me because I'm reacting to other people, but I want that more than anything in my life. So much like McFly was saying there, of course, he understands it on a much more personal level since he is a parent. But I cannot imagine, cannot even fathom what it would take to do anything remotely in that realm to a child. It gets complicated when it is another child and it's generational, but as an adult, like he was saying, I can't comprehend it. It makes me sick. It's making my heart hurt just to think about.
A lot more people that do this than you really think. And there's groups that support each other in doing this.
Yep.
And I just don't understand. I don't fathom it. As a dad of 3 kids, I don't understand how anybody could have that mentality. I just don't. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I don't get it either. My 6-month-old's sitting next to me. But
that reminded me also, Roger and I, a lot of times when we're having a conversation, Lucy will make a little sound. She'll either sigh or she'll make this little like sound, our beagle, in response, and we'll talk to her just like that. We're like, yeah, I think so too. Oh yeah, me too, Lou. I agree. So that's a funny little note there that reminded me of
my 6-month-old's sitting next to me. But I just don't understand. I find it, there's so many things I want to say. Wolf is one of the more intelligent, well-spoken, well-thought out reactors, content creators out there on YouTube, right? I want to tell you guys what you see in front of you right now with me, with Wolf, with that singer reaction, with Disco Doc, everybody that's been on this so far, what you see, whether we intend it or not, is a persona. We are not who we are in front of the camera, right? I will say this. We are who we are in front of the camera, but it is only one part of us. We go through strife. We go through anger. We go through sadness. We go through all the emotions that every single human being goes through. We go through it. But when we get on the camera, we take the positive energy and we try to push that out. We've seen the stoic, the very serious, kind of thoughtful Wolf, but we've also seen with his last few videos with the beef going on that he can be seriously funny too. Just because somebody may seem a certain way, you don't know what they're going through behind the scenes. And I understand this completely. Like, you go through that, that's a traumatic experience that your body is going to reject. Your mind is going to reject. Like, no, last time this happened, this was something bad. I don't like it. You're going to cringe. You're going to recoil. You're going to fight back. I understand.
Yeah, you know, what he was saying there at the end, the body keeps the score. A lot of times, even if you are trying not to, your body's going to have an involuntary reaction because it literally remembers the things that you have gone through that were traumatic. And I also wanted to comment on what he was saying there about how even if we don't want that to be the case, or it's not like an intentional fake facade that we're putting on, you come to our channels, you are sort of seeing a persona. And it's, again, not that it's completely fake, but it is just part of us. Now, even for a lot of us who share a wide range of emotional content, like the really happy stuff, like for me, my big push reactions that I've done so far, I've only done 2 of them, can't wait to do more, but I was just overwhelmed with joy in those. Then several of my Ren reactions have had me sobbing and soaking my shirt with tears because they're so relatable and they hit so hard and so close to home, or they're just great storytelling. And then there have also been songs that are just super upbeat, fun things to dissect. So you're seeing all these different parts of me. And I have mentioned a couple different times in different contexts and in comments to you all on my channel that in a lot of ways I feel like my eating disorder in the past 2 years has completely stolen my personality. It had taken a backseat for about a decade, then it came back with a vengeance in 2021, and I'm still trying to climb my way out of that. It's been almost 2 years since I started working with my coach, and then it's been a wild ride to get there, but I've shared that I feel like it takes my personality, like it's stolen it. And I just read a comment the other day from someone that said, I know that you say you feel like you don't have a personality, but I see it. I see it in your videos. I see it when you're reacting. I see it in your emotions. And I couldn't help but think of that comment when McFly was just talking about all that, because what I share, as I've said before, is 100% real and honest and raw and vulnerable, because I cannot fake emotion at all. However, I'm also not getting the camera out to film all of the moments where I'm sitting there screaming at God thinking, hey, what is good about this? Why is this happening? Or I know that you exist, but it's hard for me to believe that when I don't feel your presence. Personally, my faith is a big part of my life, and if I'm getting to that point, you know, things are pretty dark, and those aren't times that I'm going to pull out the camera and chat. Now, I do have vlogs every so often, and not in recent months, but in the past specifically, where I do get out and I will talk about that stuff on camera, but for the most part, if you're coming primarily for the reaction content, you're going to see the energy that I'm able to put into the reaction content. You're not going to see all the behind the scenes stuff, despite the fact that I do try to do my best to live as transparent a life as possible. So I just wanted to double down on what he was saying there.
I want you guys to realize, like, as an adult, this is traumatic, right? As an adult, I feel like everything that he's talking about right now is a natural feeling to have. Reactions I actually would expect from an adult, and he was 5 years old. 5 years old, and he went through this. I mean, I can't imagine, bro. I can't imagine. Nobody should have to go through that, man.
You have to go through a lot of stuff early on in life to start having these reactions that are almost instinctually more mature than anyone else that is significantly older than you. No child should ever have to be in a position where they're having to take these adult level reactions or having to have these adult level responses because of the things that they have endured. A lot of things that you instinctually do as an adult, you don't necessarily know why as a child, and you might not even have the instincts, but there's this inner just kind of knowing when something is wrong. And if you have been in situations that are like this, you want to do whatever you can to stop that, but then you get terrified. Just kind of like McFly was saying, I can't imagine what it was like going through this at 5 years old. And not only that, but being able to have the reactions that he had and respond in the way that he did. That's a level of maturity that a 5-year-old should never have to take on, even if it's not intentional. Man, it's hard.
You guys know me. I've been pretty emotional on my channel, which is honestly unintentional, 100%. From what I've seen, Wolf has never really been emotional like this. Brother, discussing this right now, I hope was therapy for you. Because when I've discussed some of my ailments, it's just not even close in comparison to traumatic as what you're talking about. But I really hope that this helped you just open up. If not for anything else, I do hope that it helped you heal a little bit, because I've found that opening up on my own channel has helped. I'll discuss this in detail.
I wanted to briefly remark on what McFly was saying there about how, you know, he made an aside about how he's discussed his own ailments and things that he's gone through. And then he said that, you know, comparatively, it's not bad. And I want to say that when it comes to trauma, when it comes to traumatic experiences, when it comes to things that are extremely painful, no matter what it is, there is no comparison. There is no person to person, my trauma's worse, this is worse than you, this is, you know, there may be certain situations where specifically if you've dealt with trauma yourself and you struggle to believe that you deserve to have good things or live a good life, you may downplay anything you've gone through and say, oh, but I didn't endure what this person did, so therefore mine is less, or theirs is objectively a lot worse than mine. And while maybe there are some acts that are by definition considered traumatic and other things may not be by definition, and I'm talking about like dictionary definition considered traumatic, dictionaries and definitions don't matter when you're talking about emotions and your experience and what you have lived through. So whatever painful experiences you have lived through, I just want everyone to know, comparing your trauma, comparing your difficulties minimizes the very real pain that you are dealing with. And I also understand it. I almost caught myself a minute ago wanting to do the same thing about myself, saying, yeah, I deal with all this stuff myself, the list of things that I've shared in previous videos, but I haven't gone through what he's he's gone through. And when McFly said what he said, the bells rang in my head. I'm like, no, Becca, don't say that, because that's comparative trauma, and comparison does not help anyone, because trauma is trauma. Living through something painful is living through something really painful, and it honestly just sucks all the way around. But I also deeply understand the desire to try to give other people's trauma more weight than your own, because you feel like they deserve it more, or that they had it harder because you're downplaying your own thing, even if you don't realize that that's what you're doing. A lot of times that's what's happening. And I've also had much the same experience of opening up on my channel about both my chronic illnesses and specifically about my eating disorder recovery and other mental health struggles has been an extremely healing and cathartic process for me. And part of that is directly attributed to the wonderful and beautiful souls that come on this channel. And I appreciate you all sharing your stories so much with me in the comments. But one thing that makes my heart hurt, and please keep sharing, I'm not saying don't share, but hearing that so many of you have gone through such difficult, such traumatic, such painful experiences in life, it just highlights to me how important it is to continue sharing my own, to be able to give you that space that you can connect with each other in the comments and have conversations that you might not have with other people in your life, or you can relate to something that I share or something that McFly's sharing here, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not alone in that. I always say that my main goal with this channel, with any video, is to leave people feeling more understood, less alone, or give them a reason to laugh or learn about something. So that connection, that feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling understood is a big part of this human experience, and being able to express your emotions is a major part of that, and it's something that not everyone is able to do, much less on camera in front of however many people may end up seeing your videos. So I just wanted to attest to that. You all have proven it to me, how healing this can be, and yeah, I think it just speaks a lot to sharing your lived reality, sharing your experience in life, and then hearing other people say, hey, maybe my circumstances were different, but I understand exactly what you said about this right here. I felt the exact same way. That is just super powerful. And when other people are able to have even a small fraction of healing from something that has been healing for me as well, when I share it, it blows my mind that this is reality, that this is real life. I'm so thankful for you all.
Time I was 5 or 6.
I feel like I'm in a
TV flickering
I
in a
was
blue
just
phosphorus
about to
light.
on my garage, and I'm
This is what I'm talking about with Wolf, is the way he describes things. You can tell the way that he visualizes things is very unique. It's an artistic perspective, right? Photography is an art. It's an art that I tried to dabble in and failed miserably at. Videography is an art, right? Music is an art. All of these things, everybody has different perspectives of how they look at things. Obviously, we know Ren has a unique way of looking at everything. I think Wolf has a unique way of looking at everything. Trauma can lead to bad things, but also it can lead to a different perspective on everything. So I'm not trying to say what happened to him was a good thing, but I'm saying even the worst of things can lead to some positives.
I want to quickly say, don't sell yourself short there, brother. Do not sell yourself short, because you also have a very unique experience. And I think it's amazing that you're part of this online community. And just sort of on the note of what he was saying there, one of the lines that came up for me while he was talking was from Illest of Our Time, towards the end, where Ren says, living in depression is a blessing in disguise. And I tried to address this in the reaction. There are a lot of different ways that can be taken. Obviously, a lot of people will try to say, oh, this pain is going to make you stronger and there will be something good to come from it. And I have said in the past myself, I don't particularly now at this point in my life think that that's a super helpful way to look at it. Now, that does not say ignoring the concept of silver linings, so don't think that that's where I'm going, but I'm just saying a lot of times people will throw that out there. It's like that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, I don't know. Sometimes what doesn't kill you just makes you hurt really bad, or makes you just feel really like crap, and you're not necessarily feeling straight from it. But it is also something that it gives you the opportunity that if you choose to let it, living with whatever struggle it is that you're dealing with personally can give you some insight and a window into empathy that other people do not have if they have not gone through something similar. And then being able to offer that presence and that listening ear or that shoulder to cry on to anyone else who relates or would like to share similar things, it is a blessing. But it doesn't feel like a blessing when you're in the middle of the depression. It very much is something that happens when you go through hard things. There are a lot of things in life that we go through, and I think that the choices that we have are we either let them destroy us or we find a way to flip it around around. And that is so much easier said than done, because there are times in the past year or two alone that I have repeatedly said, this is destroying me. There's no way I can keep going. There's no way. Specifically talking about my eating disorder, but also other things in life as well, and other people with all of their different circumstances. But you can either go to that completely hopeless place, or you can try to hold on to the one little thing in one day that gives you this sense of, I use the phrase cautious optimism a lot because the word hope is scary for me, that things might be able to change, that things might be different, that they might not always be as painful or as bad as they feel right now. And again, I don't say that in any way to minimize. I just think it is a matter of perspective, of taking the painful situations you're dealing with and deciding, do I want this to completely consume me? Because that would be not only easy to do, but also completely understandable, because these are extremely hard situations, and it would be understandable for you to want to just let yourself drown in it because it can be all consuming. Or you can do your best to try to flip it around, to try to turn it into, I don't want to say something good, but something that can help other people, even if it is something so excruciatingly painful, it's even like hard to talk about. And I also want to point out, you have no obligation to share your trauma with other people. But even if you aren't sharing your specifics, it has the opportunity to help you develop that deeper level of empathy where other people just can kind of pick up on it and feel that from you. And I can feel that from McFly here as he's watching Wolf's video. Feeling the love and the support like that through the screen, I think just speaks a lot to someone's ability to convey emotion literally just through the screen. I love it. Okay, I'm having a little trouble with the multiple people, 4 different people on screen right now talking. No, 5 different people on screen, but McFly's not talking. Apologies if I seem a little disoriented. I'm just trying to get my ground here.
And somebody always has it up.
That right there is key, right? Even in the worst traumatic experience, man, I'm getting emotional listening to him talk about this. Even in
Same, brother.
the most traumatic experience, right? This is pretty traumatic that he went through. He's saying like it could have been even worse, and he's thankful that it didn't. Like it wasn't worse. Wolf, what are you doing to me, bro? I told myself I wasn't gonna get emotional anymore on my channel. What are you doing?
I did not know that he was going to further talk about that comparative trauma there, and I definitely did not expect to see Wolf do what I was just talking about a minute ago. He's sharing this extremely vulnerable experience, but he also, even if it was unintentional, downplayed it because what he witnessed someone else go through in his mind was worse. So at least what he went through wasn't that. And again, there are situations that on the surface seem objectively worse or better, but when you're talking about something that has had a traumatic impact, you aren't in control of how that affects you, of how that has affected your nervous system, of how that has affected your way to go through this life. So again, I get on a very human level, because I feel like this myself a lot, the urge to downplay what you've been through because you know there are other people who you think objectively have it worse. And maybe they do, but the comparison doesn't really help you and it doesn't help them. Just saying that in general, because like I said, myself, I do that a lot. I get into that game of downplaying anything that I've gone through because I'm talking to this person who has this specific that was different, and my mind says, nope, they deserve more compassion, they deserve more empathy. When really, if you're a human and you've gone through a traumatically painful event, you deserve all of that and more, and connection and love. And I'm getting pretty emotional myself.
I think that is key for people to remember. I've seen before somebody complaining about something that is like really hurting them, right? And whether it's on social media or whatever, I've seen that. And then people are like, well, whatever, I went through this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you don't need to devalidate or invalidate what somebody's going through. Like everybody's issues and troubles are super major to them. Whether you think it's major or not, they haven't gone through what you've gone through, right? And just like you haven't gone through what they've gone through. So you don't know how how something's impacting a person, like I said before. And just because somebody has it worse than you doesn't mean that your feelings aren't valid either. So I think there's this whole dichotomy here that really you can dive deep into, but it's a really good perspective that he has right now.
One thing that I love about this community and this kind of like sect of the reactor community is the support for everyone else, is the genuine wanting to be there, wanting to be an encouragement, wanting to be kind, wanting to show compassion to each other. And what McFly was talking about right there is literally what we just discussed. So like I said, I wasn't saying what I said to let him know or to teach him something, because he clearly knows exactly what I'm talking about, as does, I'm sure, every other person who's participated in this thus far, and many of you who are watching. But even if you look at an objective list of bad things and maybe your thing that you have you think is lower than someone else's, you're still dealing with that pain, and that still is valid and worth the care and treatment and help that you deserve to be able to break free and heal from that. You could dive deep into it, and I just want to reiterate what he said. Just because someone has it, if you think objectively worse than you, it doesn't mean that your feelings and your pain don't matter. I love the way that he said that.
Bye for now. Inception is real.
Yeah.
Inception is real. Inception is real.
It was a weird time.
That was different.
She tried.
I don't even know what the...
I mean, if we put this generally speaking. I think honestly, the minimum requirements to be a parent is that you at least try. There's too many parents out there that they almost see their kids as a burden, and I've seen it firsthand, and they don't really try. They're just getting through it. I think the best thing you can do for your kid is to try and be a good parent. Learn from the mistakes your parents made, and then make sure that you and your kids don't make those same mistakes, right? I think that's important. He's right. You don't know what's happened to you until after you've matured and become more keen to what's going on in your life. Kids don't know what trauma is. They just know something bad is happening, right? And for him to, I understand him blaming his mom, but also now as an adult understanding like she was a teenager, and to come to terms with what's happening is probably traumatic for her as well. So he's kind of feeling that empathy there. He doesn't have to either. He doesn't have to feel that empathy, but he is. So that shows growth, that shows maturity.
Just want to echo that. That last point is really true. I do think that a parent's number one responsibility is ultimately to try to protect your child, to try to teach your child, to try to raise your child in the way that they need to be raised in this world, to try to insert whatever here when it comes to child raising. Again, I'm not in that position myself yet. It would be the biggest miracle in the world, and that's the number one thing that I'm hoping that I'm able to recover for. But having gone through what he has gone through, like McFly was saying, Wolf doesn't have to have that kind of empathy, but he is choosing to because he has let this horribly traumatic experience, or sounds like more than one horribly traumatic experience, help him channel that empathy instead of it completely making him hard to the world. And that is honestly a testament to strength that you don't know unless you've lived it. And I've never shared what I'm about to share publicly either, and I can't talk about the details of it because I only shared it in therapy this year for the first time. That therapist then abandoned me without much warning, so I'm kind of frustrated that I shared something that has been hidden in my brain and in my heart for like 25, 26 years with this therapist who then left me with some abandonment trauma on top of that. But I've shared it with a couple other people in my life, and all I will say is that what they're saying is absolutely correct. When you're a child and you go through something that's really serious, that's really difficult, that's really painful and traumatic, you a lot of times don't have words to put to it. And I know in my case, a lot of times there was also a degree of shame and embarrassment that like, if I say this, then what I think is actually wrong, and I'm gonna get blamed, or I'm gonna get in trouble, or I have done something wrong, therefore I am wrong and I am bad, so I gotta keep my mouth shut because this must be something that everyone goes through, right? Not right. Not the case. Literally not until the past 8 months did I come to this realization about one specific instance in my childhood. And I don't want to try to make this sound like anything more severe than it is, but it was definitely something. It's one of those instances where as a child I knew it was wrong, but then I also didn't feel like I could ever complain about it or talk about it because that would not only cast me as someone who had been bad or shameful, but it would hurt this other person. And I didn't want to do that because that was the wrong thing to do, right? There are no right answers except trying to open up when you're able, and when you're a child you just can't make sense of a lot of stuff, and that's why a lot of times there are a lot of adults who are going through trauma therapy, processing things that are 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. I also want to say the experience that I'm referencing was not in relation to my parents at all. I'm very, very fortunate, and I have the blessing of having parents who not only tried but in a lot of ways excelled, and that doesn't mean they got everything perfect because no parent can. None of their parents got everything perfect. Even though they got a lot of things right, not everything was perfect. If I am ever given the blessing of being able to be a mother, I will not get everything perfect because it is not possible. But I'm very thankful that I have parents who worked as hard as they could to give me a life that had opportunities and had security and showed me love. And those are things that I do not take for granted one bit, because I never, even in times when I was having some really dark emotional moments growing up, I never had to doubt that my parents were trying anything that they could to help me. Sometimes I would get frustrated, specifically it was related to my eating disorder, because my eating disorder would get mad and scream, inwardly or outwardly. That's something that I'm really fortunate to have had, and I don't take that lightly, and I don't take it for granted at all.
But I think I would nominate a guy who's like almost like the Japanese protagonist from Back to the Future to be the next participant in the RENception.
Okay, so McFly's screen name there is McFly JP. So Marty McFly, Back to the Future, the JP, the Japanese protagonist of Back to the Future. Okay, that was clever, Wolf. That was clever.
Hey, I like that visionary description of me. I appreciate that, Wolf. First off, Wolf, thank you for sharing that, brother, and opening up to us. I know it's hard to open up about stuff like that and to kind of have to relive past traumas. But I think it could be very helpful and very healing for yourself, and also for other people who might see the video, right, that have gone through the same thing. It's very healing for them as well. I know for me, a couple times not come clean, but talked about some of the stuff that's happened to me. And I've had people come back to me and say, you know, this video helped me a lot or helps whatever, which is still weird to me that I'm able to help somebody like that. But
I just want to remark on what he said there. It is a very weird feeling, a very surreal feeling in a good way, but still very weird when you share something that is painful. And, you know, as we've talked about, it is a cathartically healing process for you to be able to just speak some things aloud and to put things into words. However, when you get the feedback from different people and they say things like, thank you for leaving that in the video, that helped me make a decision, or that helped me go through with this action, or it helped me know I'm not alone, or again, back to feeling more understood, more connected, less alone. It is just a very weird experience to get all of those comments and to know that as a result of you being raw and vulnerable and open and sharing your own pain, you have given others a vehicle where they feel comfortable to do the same, whether they're sharing it in your own comment section, whether they're able to talk to people about it in their own life, like offline completely. That's a majorly important thing. And it's not that anyone has any obligation to share, but if you feel like you have this desire or have this urge and you want to share things, I can almost guarantee you there will be other people who relate, even if the specifics are somewhat or slightly or drastically different. They will be able to relate to you sharing your emotional pain and experience on a very core human level. And that has been the biggest blessing over the past 6 months or so on this channel, is getting to know so many of you and seeing that you feel comfortable enough to trust me with just small parts of your stories. I know that all of you have gone through infinitely more than you could put in a comment or two, or however many comments you decide to leave, but I don't take the responsibility of holding your stories lightly either. I think about all of you. I read every single comment. I do my best to reply to all of them that I can. I'm a little behind right now simply because of my own health, mental and physical stuff, but I read every single one, often more than once, because I want to know your stories. I want to be able to think of you. I want to be able to pray for you. I want to be able to give you that ability to know that just someone is listening, especially if you don't have anyone else in life that can serve that purpose for you right now. But it is also my hope that you're able to have other people that can do that on a more like one-to-one level.
I'm super humbled that you decided to pick me for this, to be included with the likes of you, with the likes of That Singer Reacts, everybody that's been involved. I'm still kind of in shock, I guess. Maybe I'm overreacting. It is what it is.
Huh. Overreacting because he's a reactor. I don't know if he meant to do that, but I enjoyed it and he got a little laugh there himself. So
I think we've progressed, we've evolved very well in certain areas. You know, we're a little more tolerant of a lot of different things. But I also think there's a lot of areas that we have a lot of work to do still. Specifically though, I think the overall outlook on mental health in general, but even more specifically men's mental health, I think there needs to be a drastic change. You know, we've been trained through centuries of cultural stigmas that men getting emotional is a bad thing, that you know, a man needs to be, you know, be a man. That's what we hear all the time. Be a man about it. It has caused a lot of issues for men in general. I think it's caused a lot of social issues for men and a lot of mental issues for men. There's a reason that the suicide rate heavily outweighs for men than it does for women.
I want to pause it right here on the screen that he pulled up there, because this conversation that McFly is having here is extremely important. And obviously, I'm going to let him talk about this because he is a man. I'm not. So he has that firsthand experience. I know how difficult it is to talk about and open up about mental health stuff, but I also am aware that a lot of times and in a lot of ways, it is a lot easier for girls and women to do that than it is for boys and men to do that. And what he was talking about there is that there is kind of like the societal narrative, and specifically if you grew up in a place where this was really just like pushed and pushed and pushed, you know, be a man, suck it up, don't ever show emotions, emotion is weakness, all of that. Ooh yeah, scream, ah man, toughness. I'm being a little exaggerated there, but like, it's a real thing. That is an expectation that a lot of people still kind of have. So these tough men, who I'm not saying that they're not tough, but I put them in quotes like that because that is promoted as like the only way that men should be in this world. And then you can look at the statistics that he pulled up there for the suicide rates in this country, and it is highest in middle-aged white men. And there's not... Some of that could be due to just like reporting different things with data, reporting stuff, but also usually, and I'm going to say this here, and I don't know what this conversation is going to be like in the comments, so feel free to say whatever you want about this, but middle-aged white men specifically, a lot of times, yeah, they have a lot of privilege in the world, but as a result of that, they are often the targets of a lot of attacks, of a lot of negativity, of a lot of insults, of a lot of just hatred. And I'm not saying that some of that's not warranted. There are some middle-aged white men like that. There are some middle-aged white women, like there are some young people of any race that are the same way. Some older people of any race that are the same way. But looking at that statistic there, it doesn't surprise me that's just really sobering and highlights how important this conversation is, because mental health is something that a lot of men that I know personally, and a lot of men that I have just seen online that I've had the fortune of connecting with via my own things online, people that I have had conversations with who have shared with me, like, I've never shared this with anyone before because I was told I can't open up about it, because I was told it's not manly, because I was told it's not the big, tough, brave thing to do, when really sharing that vulnerably is the toughest, most brave thing that you can do. It is the single toughest, bravest thing that you can do, point blank in the period.
For all my women out there, I am not taking away from the other things that you go through.
Didn't think you
But
were.
specifically talking about mental health and showing emotion, men, there's a huge stigma around it that I think needs to change. Men need to share too. They need to feel, they need to express those feelings in healthy ways to be able to be better people. Like I said before, I think that's something my channel has helped me drastically with, is opening up. I've now become more in tune with myself, in tune with my emotions, in tune with what makes me feel a certain way. And therapy has helped a lot with that, but I wouldn't have gotten therapy without this channel, knowing that something was bothering me and I needed to do something. So hopefully,
I just want to point out how amazing it was that he said he would not have gotten to therapy without his channel. So much like I've shared with you guys, there are certain things like creating the GoFundMe account that I just created a few days ago so that I can continue to see my current outpatient treatment team for another several months, so that I can finally break free from this eating disorder and move on with life. That is something that you all directly gave me the courage to do. You not only gave me the courage, you gave me the idea for it, and you said, go for it, do it now. We want to be able to support you. The fact that McFly has gotten to therapy as a result of his channel, that is such a testament to the power of being able to connect and share on that human level. And I just, oh, brother, I'm so thankful you were able to get into therapy. That's amazing. And to know that your channel played a role in that, that's wow, that's amazing.
so hopefully we can all do something to kind of change that stigma and move forward and evolve. As to you, Wolfman, I'm sorry for what you went through. Like I said, it's hard to kind of share things that ail us, especially with what I just said, with the whole stigma around men and being emotional and stuff, and also having to relive what you went through. I know is very difficult. You know, the great thing about Ren's music is it's allowed us to feel, it's allowed us to see somebody else express some of what we feel. So I think that's helped a lot in getting us to open up. But you know, the fact that, you know, you went through all of that horrific stuff and you came out the other side as the person you are, you know, you're well-spoken, artistic, you have a unique artistic vision of life, of art, of everything around you. And I think that's hope. That creates hope for others that have gone through similar stuff or worse stuff, or even just different stuff, but have gone through things, gone through challenges in their life. It shows that, you know, they can prosper, they can come out the other side. There's light on the other end of the tunnel. So I commend you, man, for sharing. Look, you said, you know, you're not going to force me to share anything. And I've shared a lot on my channel, but I haven't gone into a lot of specifics. For the sake of time, I don't want to rehash old stuff. For those of you who might not know who I am or what I've gone through, honestly, nothing really close to what Wolf just talked about. But I think we all have our own versions of grief that, even though it might not be big for somebody else, for us, they're big, right? But it hit home when he was talking about his mom. I'm currently going through kind of a mourning period in getting therapy and seeking out why I had insomnia. In doing that, I was diagnosed with anxiety, and then later on also with general depression. It made me start to kind of look within myself and say, what may have triggered this? What may have been like kind of some of the gears that had set this in motion? While that was happening, there was strife between myself, my mom, my wife, my mom, and my stepdad, all this stuff happening. And I was analyzing that at the same time. And it ended up being that those two things were connected. You know, my mom, you know, she does have a big heart, but she just does not know how to hold in her emotions. She doesn't know how to control herself. She's very narcissistic. She's very manipulative. Even if it's not purposeful, even if it's not intentional, she is that way.
Just want to speak to what he's saying here really quickly. Even if it's not purposeful, even if it's not intentional, that doesn't take away from the pain and the effect that it has on him as a son. Doesn't take away from the fact that that is reality, whether she intends it or not, whether it's because of a mental condition, and I'm not a diagnostician, I'm literally just going off his words here, or a mental state that leaves someone predisposed to acting in these certain ways. Even if it's unintentional and you know that it's unintentional, or even if you know that they aren't aware of it, but you see it happening, it doesn't make it easier to deal with. It still sucks. It still hurts. It's still really hard. And I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge that as he's sharing his story here.
She is that way. She's one of those people where if she can't control everything going on, she flips out. Now, my wife's been there when she's literally thrown a 5-year-old tantrum, banging on the walls and stuff. And I don't need to go into detail because honestly, those are her things to work out. But how it affected me, right, is my childhood trauma, while nowhere near what Wolf was talking about, it definitely, it had its effect on me. My mom and my dad divorced, that whole thing. And I mentioned earlier that there's things I'm finding out even now that she did that I didn't know. Like, my dad's holding me when I'm still a baby and she's throwing a hot iron at him and holding a knife to him while he's holding me. Like, just these things that normal people don't do, man. Normal people don't do those things. And
I want to remark on that statement there. Brother, you're getting me emotional now again. What he said there at the end of that sentence, he said, normal people don't do those things. And I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the phrase normal people because that implies that there's like some standard that we should all meet, but that's not what he's saying there at all. So I'm not going on a tangent about that. That is not at all what McFly was saying. He's just saying that's not a normal part of a healthy childhood growing up. But when you are growing up in that, like we were talking about earlier, as a child, you don't always recognize, even if you know something's not quite right, you don't always recognize it as wrong, or at least you can't name what it is that was wrong. And the fact that he's sharing here how all this stuff is coming up in therapy now when he's an adult and he's just now starting to unpack a lot of this, that is a story for so many people. And I'm just sorry. I'm sorry that you witnessed what you've witnessed. I know you keep mentioning, the comparison, it's not anything compared to what Wolf has gone through, but you even pointed out yourself, the comparison is a game that just hurts all of us because we're all dealing with pain, and I'm so sorry for the pain that you have dealt with as a result of witnessing the things that you've witnessed.
normal people don't do, man. Normal people don't do those things. I think if it was just me and my wife, like that's something, okay, I'd be willing to work through it. I'd be willing to try to get our relationship back. But when kids come into play, man, things change. I don't want there to be an outburst and then they see something like that because I know how it's affected me. My mom and my stepdad argued a lot. There's a trend there. Argued a lot, and they argued in front of me. And because of what happened with my mom and my dad divorcing, when they would argue, I would just freeze up. I would freeze and I would just sit there and listen to it all.
That right there, you heard the nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze response. When you're faced with a traumatic experience like that, you do tend to have, actually it's technically one of 4 responses, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And he's describing the freeze response here, where he was watching those horrible arguments and he would just kind of like almost shut down and freeze there. And that is such a very real sign of trauma, as well as the fight response, the flight response, the fawn response. They all have a significant part to play. But I have dealt with quite a bit of the freeze response myself. And it's really difficult, no matter what experience has triggered it. It's really difficult to feel like you just can't do anything. Not even do anything. You can't even really think through anything. You can't even comprehend or process or communicate. It's a hard place to be in. And it is a defense of your nervous system to try to protect from whatever pain you're witnessing, to try to shut off anything that it can in your brain, to try to shut out some of that pain in those horrible situations. And it sometimes might help numb you out a little bit in the moment, but a lot of times that ends up in stuff like you learning how to dissociate from a young age when things stressful happen around you because you've had to go through so many hurtful and painful and traumatic experiences. And it just breaks my heart.
And because of what happened with my mom and my dad divorcing, when they would argue, I would just freeze up. I would freeze and I would just sit there and listen to it all. That's affected me now with my wife. When we argue, I tend to go silent and she hates it. She wants to discuss it, which is the right thing to do. It's trying to get past that trauma of what happens when you argue. It's a divorce. I don't want to argue because I might say something that would then lead to a divorce, right?
That is so real. It doesn't surprise me that he said what he said earlier about parents that try, and about how the best that you can do is take what your parents did, maybe what they did that wasn't right, and try to improve upon that yourself. That's what he has done here, and it takes a massive amount of courage to make that step, to protect your children, to say, okay, this relationship is not something that is worth risking my children's safety over to try to restore this relationship that might be past repair anyway. So that is a really painful place to be in, and it's a very difficult yet extremely mature adult decision that you've made there, brother. That is difficult and hard and courageous and strong, and I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Other stuff there is like when they were arguing, they would ask me who's right in this situation. Don't ask a kid who's right. Don't ask your kid, right? A lot that happened that I'm still learning about. I don't want my kids to be succumb to that because it's not fair to them. They don't need to see that, and it could affect them in a negative way like it affected me. Because of that, I tend to overanalyze a lot. My therapist gets on me all the time about I overanalyze everything. I look at every angle, right? If I do this, what are the positive things that could happen? What are the negative things that could happen? What are the things in between between, all the areas in between. I analyze it from every single angle. What's good about that, you don't miss things, right? And you're prepared for everything. The other issue of that is you literally see everything. The worst of the worst, right? If I do something wrong with my kids, I overanalyze and I think, well, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. I mentioned earlier about my wife having to work right now, and I beat myself up about that every single day.
I'm gonna let him talk a little more because I don't want to interrupt what he's sharing here. So I just wanted to make a note that I will talk more about this when he's finished. But I want to let him have the floor so he can process a lot of this right here.
Oh, and I beat myself up about that every single day. You know, and every day I feel like I'm a failure. Every day I feel like I have to climb out of this depressive state just to feel okay.
Said I wasn't going to pause it, but I am. Because I related like heck to those statements. Said every day I feel like I'm a failure. Every day I feel like I have to climb out of this depressive state just to feel okay. That is heavy, and that is deep, and that is extremely relatable, and thank you for sharing that. It was extremely vulnerable, and I know that a lot of people are going to be able to relate to that statement.
These last 2 weeks have been brutal. Honestly, I've had to basically like almost the entire day distract myself with something other than work and life. It's to the point where it's kind of affecting my kids a little bit. You know, I'm sitting there on my phone or playing on my little, I don't have with me, but my little Game Boy thing instead of being with them, but because I don't have the energy, I don't have the bandwidth to do it right now. And that sucks. They're growing up and I don't want to miss it. Like I said, it's a work in progress. I need to learn not be so hard on myself. I need to learn to build back up my ego, build back up my self-confidence. And I did get bullied in 2nd grade, like I said before, because of my parents divorcing. It was my fault. I had no siblings, and I changed schools pretty early on, so I had no friends for a long time. And honestly, I had no best friends until about 5th and 6th grade. Junior high, I had some best friends. And then I switched schools again, switched districts, so I had no friends until senior year of high school. It was rough. Those friends I made in high school are still my friends now, even though I don't really see them. But yeah, I don't want my kids to go through that. I don't want them to be affected by my issues like I was affected by my mom's issues. So
Just want to say, brother, the fact that you are aware of this and you're sharing this in this video, again, so vulnerably, so openly, that shows the heart that you have. The words that you have said when you're talking about parents and children in this video, outside of your own experience with your parents, the things you have said about your children, about yourself, it's so obvious that you want your kids to have a better life. And I'm not saying that you're like, oh, I had this horrible life, but you don't want them to, like you said, endure the things that you went through. You want to be able to shield them and protect them from that. And it is extremely apparent, not only in your words, but in your emotion that you are showing here so openly, so honestly, just being so raw about it, that you have a desire and that you are trying, and I'm sure you are succeeding more than you give yourself credit for, more than that voice in your head is letting you give yourself credit for. Because being willing to go to therapy, taking that huge step, is possibly the best thing that you can do for your children, because it is going to equip you with the ways that you can take care of yourself and then therefore be more present for them. Because I'm not a parent yet. Hopefully one day I will be. But I have a smidgen of that guilt when I'm on my phone and our beagle Lucy is looking at me and I can tell that she wants my attention, and I'll say something to her, then I'll go back to my phone, and I feel guilty about that because of a meme that I saw almost a decade ago of someone sitting on the couch on their phone and someone had put text on this dog and made it look really sad. That has stuck with me for years. I cannot imagine how much harder it is to have to deal with that when you have 3 children at home and you want to be able to be there for them, you want to be able to be present, but you are dealing with so much crap yourself in your own head that to be physically present, a lot of times you have to mentally distract yourself and be somewhere else. And that is an unfortunate part of this process, and that's something that can get easier and can get better with therapy as well. But it's hard. It's hard. And I'm just sending so much love and compassion to you right now.
So that's kind of what I'm dealing with, that I just need to slowly deal with. And if you're a guy out there and you need somebody to talk to, find a good friend, call a hotline. You can join my Discord, man. I have a mental health section. While I'm by no means a therapist or trained in any of that, I'm always willing to hear you out. And you can ask the people in this community. You know, I'm always willing to listen. I'm always willing to put an input. If you just want to vent to me, that's fine too. Some of us just want to vent. So if you need somebody to talk to, I'm always here for you guys. Keep up the good work, Wolf. It's amazing how far you've come in such a short time, really, truly. And Ren notices talent. The fact that he brought you out, paid for you to get out there. The fans paid for you to get out there means something. So keep doing what you're doing. That singer reacts. I love what you're doing. You stick to your morals, man. You stick to what you're doing. The other two I will check out. I have not checked out because I hadn't heard of them actually until this. So I will make sure to check them out. You guys should do the same. Make sure to check everybody out. All of them will be linked in the description below. I appreciate your guys' time. So I don't really know who I want to nominate. I'll probably chase that down today. And obviously you guys will know once that person does it. But I'll chase that down. Hold on a second. Hello? What do I want on my burrito? Carne, son. You know. Always carne. Yeah, I'll chase that down. I'll chase that down, and then you guys will know who it's going to be next. All right. Anyways, I appreciate the love and support for you guys. Thank you so much. This was a weird experience, but I'm glad to see where this goes. Anyways, I appreciate the love and support. Thank you guys so much. And please do remember that good vibes are contagious.
Okay, wow. First of all, again, I just want to commend you, brother, for sharing all of that, for being so open and willing to share your heart, and for showing so much empathy and holding space for Wolf there. I hope that I was able to return that favor and do the same for you, at least to some capacity. I was kind of smiling there at the end because I thought that you were really saying, I'll chase down the person I'm gonna do later, then you kept saying it, and I realized that that was your original clue for who was gonna be next. However, you then sent a DM to me and let me know that you were doing a little switcheroo, and you posted a YouTube short about it, so thank you so much for nominating me, McFly. Like he said, he was humbled to have this position he did, to be able to hold space for Wolf and to share his own story after that. Him reaching out to me to ask me to do this episode 7 likewise humbled me in a way that is hard to put into words other than that. It just meant so much to me, and as I've said about a few different things in this video, I do not take the responsibility lightly, and like he said, I am always here if anyone wants to share anything that you're dealing with. Now, I will do my best to reply. I cannot guarantee a reply every single time, but I do my best to do that. But as I was saying, I do read every single word that anyone shares in the comments here, and usually I read those comments more than once so they stick in my brain. So if you just need to say something out there and you need someone to listen, please feel free to do that. And I can guarantee you there are probably other people in the comment section here who will also respond to you and encourage you and lift you up, even if I'm not able to, or if I am able to, they will continue the chain of kindness, because that's what this community, specifically those who are part of this, you say Ren fan base, but I've been calling it a movement because that's what he is doing. Ren is single-handedly like changing this environment, changing this culture, and it's been amazing to watch and an honor to be a part of. I really appreciate both Wolf and McFly for bringing this larger conversation about men's mental health to the forefront, because as he was saying, it is something that is not always talked about, and definitely not talked about as much as women with their mental health issues. And women's mental health still deals with its own stigma, so men's mental health dealing with even more of that, it makes all of the difference when people are able to speak up and they feel open enough to share their own story, because one more story out there gives one or infinite other people the courage to then do the same. So thank you for doing that. That is amazing. Having trouble figuring out how to end this, so I will just say, if you want to know who this next reactor is, you might have to be pretty sharp to figure it out. I don't think that having a mild attention to detail is going to do it for you. I think you got to be pretty sharp, maybe even extra sharp. And to be honest, I think you're good at think it's great. Sorry for my cheesiness and my corniness. We're gonna move on from that and check out episode 8 when it drops. Keep your eyes on the Disco Docs channel because he is sharing every one of these in order on his community tab, and I will see you guys in the next video. Please take care of yourselves. Please reach out for help. This world needs you. See you next time.